I want to take a little time and talk about some specifics that, especially with ampules, become more common. A lot of times the ampules have a very small amount of fluid, so choosing the right syringe for being accurate is as important as choosing the right syringe for your ability to manipulate. So when you're dealing with a minimal volume, you want to pick the one that's easiest to manipulate but will also give you that accuracy. So for a volume less than half a milliliter, you must use a 1 milliliter or a TB syringe. However, if the volume is half a milliliter to 1 milliliter, you have a choice. You can use a 1 milliliter syringe or a 3 milliliter syringe. Now, there is some specifics with that. If the measure is accurate to the hundredths, like 0.67, you must use the TB syringe because you have to go out to that hundredths place. However, if it measures to the tenths, like you need 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, a 3 milliliter syringe may be easier to read, as well as to expel those air bubbles. Another thing is selecting your medication. So often on the shelf, you'll have multiple strengths of the same drug. So you want to pick the one that gives you easy math, but also gives you a measurable amount. Make sure that you can measure it accurately and that there's enough there that if you make a slight error, it's not amplified. So we're going to use these two labels. So we have, for example, promethazine 50 milligrams with 2 milliliters, but over here we have promethazine that's 50 milligrams per 1 milliliter. So let's look at a couple of orders. So this first order we're going to look at, the order is for promethazine 10 milligrams. So we're going to have to pick which of these two labels we're going to use. So we're going to do the math and verify both of these numbers. So let's see, we'll use the green pen for the first one. All right, so if I'm using the promethazine 50 milligrams per 2 milliliter, I need to do my math and find out how much I would be measuring to give this amount. And I can't bring up my calculator on the computer. All right, so this comes out to be 20 divided by 50, or 0.4 milliliters. Okay, now let's look at the other label and do the math for that. So this is 1 milliliter, contains 50 milligrams, and we need 10. So then we would need 0.2 milliliters. All right, now remember that TB syringe and how small those measures were. So in reality, which of these would be the easier one to choose and manipulate to measure? We would choose a 0.4. Okay, let's try another one. All right, doing the same thing with these calculations, we'll start with our 50 milligram per 2 milliliter. For this one, we need 30 milligrams of drug. So 2 milliliters over 50 times 30 is equal to 1.2 milliliters. All right. Now, let's look at the 50 milligrams per milliliter. 5 times. All right. That would be 1.6 milliliters. So, first off, what size syringe would be easiest to use for either of these? Okay, so we would pick a 3 ml syringe because our 0.6 is greater than half a milliliter and it's to the tenths. Which one is easier to read? It's kind of your choice. Personally, I would probably still go with the 50 milligram per 2 milliliter amount. Okay, let's try a couple more. All right, so this one is for 45 milligrams. So we have 2 milliliters over 50 milligrams. And that would be 1.8 milliliters. Then we have 1 milliliter over 50 milligrams. And what syringe would we use? Again, that would be the 3 milliliter syringe. All right, just from experience, technically, skills, things like that, also just personal preference. For me, I would probably go with the 0.9 using a 3 milliliter syringe, but you could still use the 1.8 with the 50 milligrams per 2 milliliter or 25 milligrams per milliliter drug. All right, one last. This one is for 25 milligrams. So we will start with our, now this is telling us 25 milligrams per milliliter is equivalent to the 50 milligrams per 2 milliliters. And I need 25 milligrams, so if I use this one, I need 1 milliliter. All right. The other one is 50 milligrams in 1 milliliter. Which would be 0.5 milliliters. Now, you could use a 1 milliliter syringe for both of these, but again, because of the complications of how narrow that tube is and how difficult it is to read and clear those bubbles, using a 3 cc syringe is okay for either of these draws. Now, which one would I choose to do? I would choose this label and this drug because the measurable amount has less room for error. Okay, so that's just reviewing a few labels and looking at, having two drugs with different concentrations. Alrighty.